What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album by Lorde, and basically this project is called Pure Heroine. This project was kind of large throughout the summer and fall of 2013 and even a little bit into the first part of 2014, where Lorde, in my opinion, just kind of came out of nowhere. She just kind of was an unexpected, kind of unsung pop mistress that ruled for basically a good chunk of 2013 and like the mid 2010s in a lot of ways. But she kind of vanished after 2014. I know she at least curated one of the Hunger Games soundtracks in 2014, but between that project and then this project, Pure Heroine, I just don't know an overabundance about Lorde. But I do remember this album just because of the #1 single, Royals. And I also remember Team. I remember Team doing pretty well also, but I just would have to kind of say that looking after this project 10 years later, it kind of has the aspect behind it that it did. I mean, I feel like Lorde has kind of takes deeper breaks from music more so than she should, because I kind of figured she would be at least on like her fourth, fifth, or sixth album by this point, but she really did not come back and drop her second album after this album, Pure Heroine, until 2017, which was quite some ways away and far removed from the Royals' popularity. But this is a pretty solid album. I definitely like it. To me, I looked this project up, and it's kind of like dream pop, electronica, and electro pop, which I didn't see so much of the electronica in here, but the more I listen to it, I kind of do. But it's also kind of gothic pop, because I do feel like Lorde can kind of be gothic. I mean, there's nothing like Evanescence or Avril Lavigne or Kelly Clarkson or that type stuff, but I would have to say that it does kind of have, like, especially for a teenage Lorde, because she was 16 at the time, it just kind of helped shape the sound. This is kind of a mid-revolutionary project, because Lorde was kind of one of the ones in the mid 2010s that kind of shifted the sound, because this has a lot of minimalist productions on here. It's nothing like outstanding in terms of like a pop beat, like when you think of like Usher's Yeah, or you think of like Beyonce's Crazy in Love or something like that, or you think of Katy Perry's like Extraterrestrial, whatever that song's called. I think it's called E.T. or something like that. Some of those type beats that just kind of have a lot more refinement. Lorde chose a lot of minimalists, this kind of mid funk, this kind of mild synthy kind of music that just does not have outstanding and kind of extravagant and distinct beats on here. And as a result, it just really feels like pretty much background music for like a day commute shopping mall. Like Lorde is not so much, I mean, I know that she was 16 at the time, but I kind of see this album as a bunch of discs like day commute and kind of places, maybe something you'd hear at an amusement park or a shopping mall, or just around places, strip malls, that type of stuff. Just places where you'd be going about during the day. I mean, minus Royals and maybe Team, and there's like one other song I'll get to later. There's not an overabundance of like supposed dance club or just kind of night venue kind of tracks. This is kind of more made for like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when you've got errands to run and bills to pay and that type of stuff. Even though Lorde was a teenager, it's not like she was making bills to pay tunes at this point, but it just is kind of, it's just kind of in the context where it just has a lot more, hey, not every activity has to be at 9, 10, 11 o'clock p.m. type stuff. So that's just kind of the context behind it. But um, there were 4 singles off this project. So yeah, there were 4 singles. The first single was Royals, and this one really feels like a baseball kind of tune. This feels like something you'd listen to at like a sports venue or something like that. This really feels like sports oriented, kind of like the boom boom clap in between hearing a song like We Will Rock You or something like that. I feel like Lorde really delivered on like a midday kind of front, as far as like that being like a decent sports venue kind of bop and this day commute kind of bop. But I do see this song also as like a nightclub song. This has a nice good pitch towards it, and it really is kind of a thumper. I mean, it's got kind of like synthiness towards it, but like I said, these beats, all 4 of the singles are kind of minimalist in terms of what they do in terms of the production. So this may have like a lot of boom bap kind of real thump and bass in there as far as that kind of goes. It's still not the most extravagant beat you're gonna have heard off a pop song, and this is very kind of light synthiness and just kind of floats around more so than anything else. But it did hit #1. So this is definitely a song I think a lot of folks have probably heard by Lorde and probably remember quite a bit. The second single is Tennis Court, and this one's definitely, to me, like shopping mall music. This one just has like a real kind of sluggish, just kind of mid tempo, not quite as up tempo as Royals and Team, but definitely kind of like a sluggish. Yeah, I feel like Tennis Court is definitely day commute and shopping mall kind of music. It's just something that you just kind of zone out and let you just hear Lorde's lovely vocals on here and that type stuff. Just kind of has that kind of approach towards it. I just would have to overall say it just is kind of it's mild emphasis on kind of like the emphasis of the song as much as it is just kind of like, hey, you've got stuff to do. You just kind of notice it and you might think, oh, that's Lorde, and then you kind of go back to what you're doing. I mean, it's just I feel like the emphasis of these songs has more emphasis on more like the aspect of what you're doing kind of in real life as opposed to focusing on like the music as much. These are not really head banging kind of tunes or dance heavy kind of tunes or stuff like that. It's just kind of at least Tennis Court and Gory and Glore kind of give off that vibe of more just kind of being out and about and just happy you just happen to have some fondness for catching this on the radio or something as opposed to actually getting down and jamming and dancing around to some of these. Like Royals is at least one that you could hear at like a baseball field or like a basketball court, something like that. But I kind of feel like the only real single that really has like any dance quality towards it would just be Team. But I do feel like Tennis Court is just kind of like mild, this kind of day commute and shopping mall, this kind of relaxed, kind of down tempo kind of music that does have like some dream pop synthiness towards it. And the third single, Team, is probably the single I like the most. I mean, Royals would be a close second, but I think Team is probably my favorite of the the four singles. And this one actually almost cracked number one also. This wound up hitting number 6 out of 100 on the Billboard 100 and such. So this is Lorde's second highest charting song in her career, but I would have to say yet and still that Team is another kind of synthy and this kind of I mean this probably has the best beat on the album minus one other song, which would be another song that has a really good beat is Buzz Cut Season. But Team is just one that this is a real kind of day commute kind of synthy kind of song. It just really feels like shopping mall music once again. Tennis Court, Team, and Gory and Glore all feel like shopping mall kind of just background strip mall kind of music just for shopping and that type stuff. But I feel like Team is like the closest thing that really gets to like a club song on here. I feel like this could probably be in the club, but it wouldn't be at night. This is not any time past 8, 9 o'clock p.m. kind of tune. It might be like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon where the lounge lizards are kind of there, that type of stuff, just having a beer. But you have to understand that Lorde was 16, so it didn't really seem as if she was making music for people who were 23 and 27 back when she was 16, 17 and stuff. But I do feel like this is at least a pretty glossy tune that has like some good relative dance emphasis, despite the fact that it comes off to me more as shopping mall music more so than actual dance club and boogie kind of music. But um, Gory and Glore is the fourth single, and this one's kind of like a high mid tempo, kind of low high tempo kind of tune. This has a good pace about it, but it's definitely another synthy kind of dream pop kind of tune like Tennis Court. It's a little bit more jivey than Tennis Court, but not quite as recreational as Team. But it does have a nice chorus on there, and it just kind of comes off as a more kind of power pop kind of tune with a little bit more like strong emphasis compared to the rest of the singles. Like I feel like it's kind of on par with Royals, a little bit more emphasized and a little bit kind of like has more meaning compared to Team and Tennis Court. But I just think that that's kind of the concept about it. So yeah, most of the singles on this project are just shopping mall music. I just would have to say this is a lot of just kind of teen bop, but it also is kind of alternative pop. I feel like in a lot of ways, like Lorde was kind of an alternative scream queen type individual. So I just would have to say, as far as that kind of went, I didn't realize that Lorde was kind of seen as gothic back in the day. I mean, she kind of struck me as kind of like maybe Addams Family-esque in terms of like her kind of she kind of has like left field kind of personality, but I didn't really see like the gothic kind of persona as much because she wasn't wearing all black and doing that sort of stuff and looking like a gothic queen or something like that, like Avril Lavigne and in some cases Kelly Clarkson and folks like that. But I would have to say I do kind of see it, and that's just kind of the concept where these, despite the fact that she kind of was a gothic queen, I kind of feel like some of these tunes are kind of just really kind of dreary. And a lot of all four of these singles are basically dreary, kind of getting errands and shopping done kind of tunes that just kind of have a more kind of gossip and frivolity concept about them. They're just not really the dance heavy kind of gothic freak show kind of tunes I would have expected out of Lorde. But I guess because she was a teenager yet and still I don't want to say that she sold out and was commercial, but this is kind of under the concept that, well, it's not like Lorde sold out and didn't do things that she wanted to do. It's just kind of a different valve for her. She went with the sound where I was expecting maybe for her to have like a more ravenous party side and to have done things that would have been like the teenage sense of something Avril Lavigne would do. But she picked a new style. She kind of revolutionized her sound for the time and went with it, and it worked. And that's kind of the thing. These are tunes that weren't really happening on the radio and in pop music prior to her late 2013 debut. So it's hats off to Lorde to be able to pull off this new sound rather than just going with the typical style that she could have and been a pretty decent scream queen in that sense. That's just kind of the concept. But so to talk about the rest of the songs, there's only 10 songs on this album. Now there is an EP with an additional 6 songs I'm going to get to as time goes along, but I'm going to go ahead and recommend the 7 songs out of 10 I recommend. So there was quite a bit of tunes on here that I wound up liking. So yeah, there was quite a bit of tunes I wound up liking on here. So the 7 songs I recommend would be Tennis Court, 400 Lux, Royals, Ribs, Buzz Cut Season, Team, and Gory and Glore, or Glory and Gore. So that just kind of happens to be the thing about it. To talk about the 3 songs I like besides the singles, like 400. To talk about the other 3 songs I enjoyed on here, like 400 Lux is kind of a romanticized song. Like there's 2 romantic kind of songs on here that kind of have a little bit more flirtatious emphasis about them, and those would be 400 Lux and Ribs, where Ribs is kind of more of a house party. It's kind of like a positive, kind of down tempo, but still kind of synthy house party type tune. Ribs is pretty similar to Team, but it's also similar to 400 Lux and kind of like the romanticizedness of it. And I feel like 400 Lux is just kind of like a kind of spring and summery kind of romanticized kind of puppy love kind of song in a lot of ways. But I kind of look after it like I do like the kind of just spaced out and kind of hot weather kind of emphasis. This is definitely kind of like probably one of the songs with the more summery production intended for like not just hot weather but like over 80 degrees hot weather. It just really kind of had that feel towards it. It definitely had 400 Lux definitely had a pretty highlighted sense about talking about summer weather. And I would have to say that Ribs is kind of like a nice house party tune. This is one that is kind of more indoor based, but it's kind of similar to Team and it's kind of similar to Royals, where Lorde, it did at least have a Ribs is kind of similar to Royals and Team, where it did at least have a decent jivey sense. Where I like the fact that Lorde, despite the fact that she was a teenager, at least had some of these tunes that were intended for having like a house shindig and just relative kind of recreational kind of values towards it. But it is kind of like down tempo, like with most of these minimalist beats on here. It's just kind of underneath the concept that it just is, it's a different kind of party tune. And this is the weirdest thing, hearing party tunes with minimalist kind of production. It's just kind of a different concept, or it just feels like a very positive down tempo kind of feel towards it. It's just not the crazy kind of synth heavy crunchy kind of metal like sounding or rap heavy sounding kind of productions on here. It's just a different kind of approach for a house party kind of song, but I liked it. It does have like a mild, like light electronic kind of feel towards it. It's just interesting kind of getting that, because Lorde kind of tried some new things on here that worked. And that's Ribs. And then Buzz Cut Season. Buzz Cut Season was kind of an alarming tune. This reminded me of Ellie Goulding's Lights, which was a popular highlight from the early 2010s. This kind of has like a very alarming and just kind of more straightforward and less. This is kind of a blue collar kind of tune. This is just one just kind of going about the day, and maybe you're not so much in a jovial and kind of recreational kind of mood, but maybe you're like, hey, I've got stuff to do, I've got things to accomplish, got to cross the T's, dot the I's, that type of stuff, got to get some stuff done. And it just kind of has a different kind of context. I do still see Buzz Cut Season as like a shopping mall kind of tune, but just kind of in a more maybe halfway serious kind of tone about it, where it's not quite as full-blown recreational. So I think that's kind of the concept, but I do like the kind of xylophone kind of heavy keyed beat on there. It just works pretty well. That's kind of the concept. So to talk about the 3 songs I didn't enjoy, I feel like Still Sane, White Teeth Turns, and A World Alone just didn't quite have the add up production that I was looking for. Like I really like I read online that A World Alone was supposed to be like a dark disco kind of beat, but I just didn't really see the disco or dance type tune of A World Alone, and just didn't really come off as a very attractive one. And then Still Sane and White Teeth Turns were just kind of different, kind of assorted productions that were, I mean, the thing about the Lorde album is just you have to come into this Lorde album expecting different and new and kind of whimsical kind of things. It's just not your typical run of the mill project. And when that actually doesn't work, and especially when it's not on singles or something recreational party kind of related, it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of deal with. And I just think that some of those concepts kind of detract from it, but I wasn't really vibing with some of the tunes of, yeah, I didn't enjoy like the context behind Still Sane and White Teeth Teens. Like they didn't have the right mixture for me. But I did like the vast majority, basically 70% of this album I wound up liking. So that's actually pretty damn good. I remember like I tried listening to this album in the past and I don't remember how much I liked. I remember at least liking Royals and Team and maybe Tennis Court, but this is actually more than I thought I was going to like of this project, just because it's kind of off the wall, doesn't have any guests on here, and it's not exactly like a frontal and kind of typical kind of pop album in a lot of senses. So it's just a different jolt of energy that tried some new things, but they worked. It's just the fact that you kind of have to deal with this. You have to deal with the concept. This is more of a southpaw kind of album. Like it feels like if most people are right-handed, Lorde's kind of a lefty, and that's just kind of the situation about. That's what I've seen about this project. It's just kind of a different valve of energy as far as that went. But in terms of what I'm going to score this album, I'm going to give this album basically like a 7.75 out of 10, just because I would almost give it an 8, but there were 3 songs I didn't enjoy, so it has to be somewhere in the 7 out of 10 territory. But I do kind of feel like 7.75 is pretty active enough just to be able to say that I thoroughly appreciated this project, and it was just surprising despite its kind of whimsical and off the side kind of relative approach for how it went. I feel like there's just some good stuff on here. Lots of day commute and shopping mall and kind of gossip and just shopping kind of vibes about it. And there's even a couple light licks as far as party tunes just for folks in a different kind of sense. But you just have to understand that these kind of house party tunes are just of a different valve than the typical stuff that would be played if you're used to rap or rock or pop or R&B or something like that, or even country. It's just kind of a different kind of assortment. So but yeah, the social score I'm gonna give like a 6.5 out of 10, because I do like the songs on here and there are some good ones, but it's just kind of a different jolt of energy that kind of has a learning curve about it. But there are some ones, but because of Lorde's young age at the time, and then also the concept of just the off the wall and kind of more minimalist production on here. It's kind of a party album, but it's just not overly on set as such. I think that that's just kind of the context about it. You just have to say that it just kind of has like a different kind of assortment of energy that just kind of makes it. It just kind of has a different assortment of energy that makes it not like the first or second choice I would think for a standard house party kind of feel. But it's not like it doesn't work. It's just kind of a different kind of this is a whimsical album, so it's just kind of for more of a whimsical party that you'd have to look into that. But that's just kind of the thing. So in terms of the future, like Lorde dropped an album in 2021, but like I said, she doesn't drop albums very often, and she's been here for 10 years now and has only put out 3 albums. So it seems like it happens like once about every 4 years. So we're kind of in the middle of that interim, but hopefully we get some more hits, and I would like to hope that maybe Lorde has some more hit albums. So we'll have to see about that.